Welcome to the Bradenton City Council meeting, Wednesday, January 10th, 2024, at 8:30 a.m. at City Hall Council Chambers. Welcome, and I'd like to call up Pastor Don Steriano with Kingdom Life Christian Church to give our invocation, and then we'll do the pledge.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you bow your heads, please? Father, maker of heaven and earth, I come before you today with a heart full of gratitude and love as I lift up the city of Bradenton to you. Thank you for the beauty and diversity that this city holds and for the many blessings it's received throughout the years. Now, as we enter 2024, I declare the best is yet to come for the friendly city. Lord, I pray for your divine protection over the city. May you surround us with your loving presence made manifest to keep its beloved people safe from harm. Psalm 115:16 says, Even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth he has given to the children of men. So with that, I ask that you guide the leaders of our city who serve as your delegated authority. Give them great wisdom and discernment as they make decisions that impact the lives of its precious people. I bless our mayor, our city council, all department heads and every employee. I bless their health, their families, their possessions, and their finances. I pray our leaders will serve with the heart of a king and lead with the heart of a servant. And I pray for the prosperity and abundance of Bradenton for this new year to greatly increase. I pray you bless its economy, bring forth new opportunities for growth and development. I ask that you provide employment for all those in need and bless businesses and industries within. May Bradenton be a place of flourishing success for all who call it home. May it shine as a city on a hill that cannot be hidden, representing the goodness of God and the brilliance of heaven on this portion of the earth. I pray for authentic and lasting revival to increase here, that your light would shine brightly in Bradenton, and seeking first your kingdom, your heart, and your righteousness would be our main passion, keeping you as our first love, resulting in the hearts of every individual to a deeper relationship with you. And Lord, I lastly say, I declare Jeremiah 29:11 over the city. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So may your kingdom come and your will be done in the wonderful city of Bradenton as it is in heaven. And I pray this all in the name of Jesus.
Thank you. And as we, before we say our pledge, I'd like to ask Acting Director Dean Jones and veteran to lead us in the pledge with all other veterans, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll call this first meeting of 2024 to order. Madam Clerk?
We do not have any proclamations or presentations scheduled this morning.
Thank you. And at this time, I'll read the citizen comment portion of it. Citizen comment will be accepted during the citizen comment portion of the meeting on any non-agenda items, agenda items, future agenda items, or topic of relevance to the city. Comments will be accepted on the public hearing at the appropriate time. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, I have no cards.
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll have no public comment. Moving forward, Madam Clerk.
Item 6 on the agenda is election of vice mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Can I?
Yes.
Yeah. First off, it's been an honor to serve as the vice mayor last year. And thank you for the opportunity. And I'd like to nominate Councilwoman Mary Ann Barnaby for the coming year as vice mayor.
All right. Is there any other second? There's a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll take a vote, starting in Ward 1.
Yes.
2.
Anybody get the number of that bus?
Yeah. 2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
All right. Congratulations, Ms. Barnaby.
Thank you all very much. It's an honor to serve our community, and I will pledge to you I'll do my best in this role.
Yeah. Congratulations. Madam Clerk.
Item 7 is the appointment of CRA board chair and vice chair.
All right. So is that the same procedure that we do? Just somebody will make a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
it's been my privilege to serve as the vice chair for the last year, but with me now, been given some new opportunities. I would like to make a motion that we retain Mr. Kramer as the chairman. I think he's doing a very good job, and I'd like to, I know he's got some things he wants to see finished, but I'd also like to, as vice chair, nominate Ms. Coker, because I know where her heart is with the CRA, and you've put forth some really good initiatives that are coming to fruit, and I'd like to see you in that position.
Thank you.
Second by Mrs. Coachman. Any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4, 5,
Yes.
and 1.
Yes,
Carries unanimously. All right, thank you.
we're part.
All right, moving forward, Madam Clerk.
I think the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, items A through N.
All right, I know everyone has met with Mr. Perry and gone through, had their council time. Any questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
At this time, I will administer the oath to anyone wishing to address City Council during the following public hearings. Will please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and representations which you are about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate? Thank you. Item 9A is Resolution 2401, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bradenton, Florida, granting special use permit number SU.23.4849 to permit a sidewalk cafe with alcoholic beverage sales for property located at 1201 First Avenue West, Bradenton, Florida. Parcel ID is 33255000001 in the T5 Transact Zoning District, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
And who do we have from staff today?
Good morning, Greg DeLong, Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development for the department, or for the city of Bradenton, and I have been sworn in.
Welcome.
Thank you. And thanks to Mrs. Tamara for reading into this for us. Appreciate it. Here's just a quick summary of the case at hand. This property does probably look familiar to you as it is directly across the street. It is the Oak and Stone and Spring Hill Suites Hotel. Here is a site plan of the property or location, and it is highlighted where the property is located. Here's a zoning map. It is in the T5 Transact Zoning District, and the future land use is urban core. As mentioned, the applicant is requesting to install a sidewalk cafe with alcohol sales. The proposed location will be on 12th Street West or Old Main Street. They're proposing to use 8 tables with 4 seats each. They're also planning to put some umbrellas and new planters in to separate the dining area or the cafe area from the public street. And they are proposing a minimum of 5 feet traversable space, which does meet the ADA requirements. Within our our property is within our form-based code area. The use is a permitted use in the form-based code area, but since there is alcohol sales, it does kick it over to a special use. Therefore, we are in front of you today. Here's a quick site plan showing the location of the seating. If you're out on 12th Street or Old Main Street and you look, there's 2 beds with a tree in it. It's basically being placed between those 2 trees out along the street. They are looking at putting some planters along 12th Street or Old Main Street. These larger squares are actually the umbrellas. The tables are kind of angular in there so they can get the 5 feet of traversable space. And that they're actually going to exceed the 5 feet, but the 5 feet is the minimum. So that is what their proposal is. Here's the current conditions, and here are the trees that I was just mentioning to you. Right now, there's just 2 planters over there. They are proposing to add additional planters. They'll work with our Public Works Department on that. They'll also work with Public Works and the CRA on the landscaping and making sure those planters are properly maintained and that there are no dead and dying plants in them and that they are continually being planted. Here is another view standing over there at Oak and Stone. You can kind of see the area where they are proposing to put the sidewalk cafe. Our code, under the form-based code, under 12.1.d.6, Roman numeral 6, it does define a sidewalk cafe. It does talk about it being adjacent to a restaurant or cafe that is currently in existence, and that is exactly what this is, with it being Oak and Stone. I'm not going to read through all of this. It is in your packet, but this is just some of the code sections addressing, and it's in our land use regulations, addressing alcohol in sidewalk cafes, talking about the seating areas and how the furniture needs to be brought in every evening. Talks about maintenance of the sidewalk, has to be cleaned up every evening so we don't have food and debris on the sidewalks. Also talks about assurance and making sure there's a liability insurance provided to the city so that we have indemnification on this. And also talks about them requiring to get their alcohol beverage license adjusted to address the outside sales. In our land use regulations under 3.3.1, it just has some general standards. Some of these are not applicable when it gets related to the form-based code, such as a 10-foot buffer, when in the form-based code area, we don't have 10-foot buffers downtown. So that one's a little obsolete on that one, but they are meeting the intent of the 3.3.1. These are also the criteria of a special use in our land use regulations. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but they are A through K. They did address all of these in their application materials that they submitted, which has been provided to you. Staff did recommend approval of the request for case SU 23.4841. We did request these stipulations. Some look a little familiar. It's a little bit of reiteration of the code, such as removing the furniture in the evening. They have approached us about leaving the furniture out, and no, there's already a stipulation approved. They did at the Planning Commission meeting state they would remove the furniture, so that stipulation will remain on there. We did talk about one of the stipulations, if they are using any type of cleaning solution on the sidewalk, to get that approved through Public Works, just because we don't want some contaminants getting into our stormwater. And then addressing their alcohol license, keeping the pedestrian clearance of 5 feet, talking about the planters and their maintenance, also working with our Public Works Department on any necessary right-of-way permits that they're going to need. Planning Commission did meet on December 20th of last year, and they did recommend approval with those stipulations I just showed you, with a vote of 6-0. You have no questions for
Any
me?
questions for Mr. DeLong?
Their applicant is here today.
All right, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As far as the cleaning of the sidewalk, is that what's being proposed with them cleaning it? Is that what's done downtown on all the other
It should be done
sidewalk
downtown
cafes?
every day. It is in our code.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just asked they coordinate with the downtown action team to sort of use whatever methods
Ours
they
is
might.
probably, our concern was more like if food gets spilled.
Sure.
It's cleaned up, so we don't have the hawks and the crows and all the other crazy birds coming in and taking it away.
Right. Okay.
Properly clean it.
As Mr. Kramer just stated, it is, I think we're in collaboration with our downtown group now, and they're pressure washing a little bit more and keeping it up. That'll just be an area they'll have to coordinate together, which is a good
And it
idea.
goes back to the planters too. The CRA is addressing some of the planters downtown. They'll work with the CRA on that also.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have
Ms.
one.
Coachman?
I'm a real visual person, but the way it looks, the public access, the walkway, will be between the building and the tables.
Correct.
So the servers are going to be going crisscrossing and all that good stuff. And it's enough space, huh?
That's what they're showing us. Once it's installed, we'll have to go out and verify.
Ms. Coker?
Yeah. Those planters are going to be maintained by the CRA?
They currently are, from my understanding. I'm going to turn around and look to Mr. Munyon. We talked about this yesterday.
Can be just a yes or no answer.
Yeah, I want to make sure it gets picked up.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, they are.
State your name,
maintained.
since you're-
This is Chris Mignon, CRA manager. It's part of the downtown maintenance that the CRA is taking care of. So yes, they are, at this point, being maintained by Public Works and the CRA.
So it would be beneficial to Oak and Stone to make sure they get maintained at a level that meets their.
Higher level,
with ours,
yeah.
right. So that'll be something that I'm sure through the downtown action team will be worked out. Mr. Perry?
For Mr. DeLong, did you all take into consideration any aesthetics as it relates to vertical surfaces in that area, particularly the window, the middle window there? I know that the restaurant had done a lot of upgrades into their cooking facility, and right now, a lot of that cooking equipment is exposed.
It is just recently covered.
has
They
been?
just got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I was wondering about,
Yeah.
is where we were going to be with that. It's obviously a very high activation corner, and the cleanliness, the appearance, the condition of the concrete itself, it's fairly pristine, the concrete there. Because for whatever reason, I think what Councilwoman Coachman was talking about, the pedestrian traffic typically walks fairly close to where that handrail is, and I want to make sure that it stays that way. Because Downtown Action Team puts a lot of money into power washing and other types of cleansing operations along our sidewalks on Old Main, and gum, all kinds of other types of debris that is difficult to get up and
Yeah.
clean.
Especially in that blue paint.
Yeah, especially in that area. So we'll pay a little bit of attention.
We'll monitor.
And I believe the applicant has a representative here today? Okay.
Yeah, but one of the things that we'll be able to monitor with them taking in their tables and chairs, the action team works early, so they'll be able to keep that part of it in a good place, as well as we are addressing through planning the rest of Main Street because of the action team and making sure that everybody is hitting those strides in that. So I think that's important, that this isn't just one area that we're going to pick on. It's to make sure that all of Main Street is doing what it's supposed to be doing within their quarters.
And as a reminder, our offices are directly across the street. We can look out our windows every day and check it out. So
For now.
for now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I like where they're going to do it. I think it'll probably be popular, and I wouldn't want to go around the corner and lose any parking spaces or anything like that. So if that ever gets talked about, let's just
If they
not go
expand
there.
it, we'll be back.
It'd be addressed.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Any other questions before we go? Does the applicant have anything, or any questions for the applicant?
Good morning, council members. My name is Amanda Hassim with Rutledge Asenia, and I am here representing Oak and Stone for their special use application for the Sidewalk Cafe permit. Oak and Stone understands the concerns with maintaining the cleanliness of the sidewalk and adhering to the aesthetics that are already in place downtown here, as beautiful as it is, and they will make sure it stays that way. We will take every action to make sure that every cleaning solution has been approved by the Downtown Authority, and the pressure washing and everything will be up to the standards that was discussed this morning. I'm here for any questions or concerns that you might have outside of that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? I think they've all been answered.
Upon approval, how soon do they anticipate having it up and running?
We'd like to have it up and running as soon as possible. I understand that the restaurant has the adequate tables and chairs that were already put forth and approved throughout this process, and they are ready to use them and serve patrons on the Sidewalk Cafe.
Thank you.
Just one further question, Mayor.
Yes,
if I
sir.
could. Just quickly, is there going to be any additional surface tops or things like that where you would bus tables and things like that, or is it going to be strictly limited to those? I think it was 8 floor tops.
You are correct. It is strictly limited to the 8, I believe it is the 4 tables with the 8 seats, or vice versa. My
Okay.
apologies.
And how is that, those tables and the umbrellas going to be stored at night? Do you have a small storage area?
Yes, there is a storage area that the restaurant is able to utilize, and they will bring in the tables and chairs at the end of closing each day and make sure that that sidewalk does not have those items after the close of business.
Great. And as Mr. DeLong pointed out, it is directly across the street from City Hall, but nonetheless, when the improvements to the interior of the restaurant were done, they were done without a permit originally. If you could go back to Oak and Stone and tell them that we appreciate them cooperating with the city and timely getting those permits, we were mindful that they began the construction without them.
And thank you for bringing that to my attention. I will make sure that the property is well aware and the restaurant is
Thank you,
aware.
Amanda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll open the public hearing. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
yeah. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
Do we have a suggested motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion for approval of Resolution 24-01
With stipulations?
with the stipulation.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion by the council?
It's a
Yes, ma'am.
cute idea, it's really
All right.
going to be nice and quaint.
All right, we'll start the vote in Ward 4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3.
Yes.
Carries 5-0. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
The next item on the agenda is the first reading and public hearing for ordinance 4027, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, providing for an amendment to the City of Bradenton Land Use Atlas, changing zoning from R2 Medium Density Residential to PDP Planned Development Project for the properties located at 1201 27th Street East and 2906 11th Avenue East. The parcel ID numbers are 138700050 and 13872000007, more particularly described herein, approving a PDP site plan for 66 semi-detached residential units, subject to stipulations as conditions of approval, providing for applicability, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. And I would like to thank Mrs. Melton for doing such a great job with a little bit of a scratchy throat.
Oh,
So
thank you.
appreciate you reading through that. And if you need a drink, take a break. Thank you. And who do we have for staff? Oh, Mr. Rudis.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is this was not actually advertised as a public hearing. If anybody is here to speak on it, obviously we'll allow them to do that. But my recommendation, it is a quasi-judicial item. I'd recommend that we hold off on any substantive discussion until the actual advertised public hearing.
Okay. All right, but we will ask if anybody's in the audience that wishes to speak on this from the public, we'll open the public hearing this time. Mr. Rudisell, so open the public hearing and offer it.
Yes.
So anyone wishing to speak on the ordinance 4027, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
And Mr. Mayor, Kyle Grimes, have been sworn. I'm just here on behalf of the applicant, so we'll be prepared to answer all substantive questions at the second reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing and move on. Madam Clerk?
I would just like to state the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4027 is scheduled for January 24th.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the first reading for ordinance 4024, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, vacating a portion of a 15-foot alley as shown on the plat of John A. Graham subdivision, recorded in Book 1, page 877 of the Public Records of Manatee County, Florida, and more particularly described herein, being generally located south of 8th Avenue East and west of 12th Street East, providing for recordation in the official records, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, and providing for an effective date. And the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4024 is also scheduled for January 24th.
Okay. No action required on this. Mr. Rudisell, will you make a statement of why we don't do a public hearing on this at this time?
Well, there's, when the city adopts an ordinance, they're required to have 2 readings, but only 1 public hearing that's advertised to the public where they show up and provide comments. So, I mean, this is a legislative item, if the council wanted to engage in a discussion about it, I don't have an objection to that. But there's no action required today, and there will be an advertised public hearing that will be on the 27th?
24th.
24th.
Right. So,
Yes.
but that's why there is no, any citizen could have commented under citizen comment on this part of it, but I think sometimes somebody gets confused on that. But I just wanted to clarify, we are meeting all rules, regulations, laws by the way that we go through the process.
Correct. And we're still, I mean, this is still available for public comment on this item, but it's just not an advertised public hearing.
Yep, all right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Well, so can we get a presentation, or that comes with the public hearing?
On this item, if the council wants a presentation, I don't have any objection to that.
But it would also.
I mean,
come-
just in general.
On the quasi judicial items, I would recommend that we wait and keep them all as part of the public hearing so we have a clean record. On the legislative items, I don't have an objection. It's up to the discretion of the council if they want to have a presentation at the first reading.
But it will be, get a full presentation at the
Okay,
second
then,
meeting.
that's fine.
All right, thank you. All right, Madam Clerk?
Okay, the next item is ordinance 4029. These three CRA items were not advertised as public hearings, so we will be having first readings for these as well. Ordinance 4029, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, approving and adopting the amended redevelopment plan for the Central Community Redevelopment Area. Finding the amended community redevelopment plan for the Central Community Redevelopment Area to be consistent with the City of Bradenton's comprehensive plan. Finding notice of the amended redevelopment plan for the Central Community Redevelopment Area to be in compliance with the notice of provisions of Chapter 163 Florida statutes, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances and resolutions in conflict, and providing for an effective date. And the second reading and public hearing is scheduled for January 24th.
Any comments?
On the next three items, I'm just here for any.
State your name and who you are.
Jeff Burton, CRA, Executive Director, City of Bradenton. I'm just here to answer any questions you might have. These are first readings, and this is legislative.
So, again, we'll open the public hearing in case somebody was here for it, the way it was. So, all right, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and the date is set for 1/24/24. So,
Correct.
next, Madam Clerk.
Item 9E is the first reading for ordinance 4030, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, renaming the Bradenton Community Redevelopment Area to the Downtown Community Redevelopment Area, expanding the boundaries of the Downtown Community Redevelopment Area, approving and adopting the amended redevelopment plan for the Downtown Community Redevelopment Area, finding the amended community redevelopment plan for the Downtown Community Redevelopment Area to be consistent with the City of Bradenton's comprehensive plan, finding notice of the amended redevelopment plan for the Downtown Community Redevelopment Area to be in compliance with the notice provisions of Chapter 163 Florida statutes, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances and resolutions in conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Same thing, comments, we'll go. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Item 9F is ordinance 4031, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, renaming the 14th Street Community Redevelopment Area to the Tamiami Trail Community Redevelopment Area, providing and adopting the amended redevelopment plan for the Tamiami Trail Community Redevelopment Area, finding the amended community redevelopment plan for the Tamiami Trail Community Redevelopment Area to be consistent with the City of Bradenton's comprehensive plan, finding notice of the amended redevelopment plan for the Tamiami Trail Community Redevelopment Area to be in compliance with the notice provisions of Chapter 163 Florida statutes, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances and resolutions in conflict, and providing for an effective date.
All right, same comments from Mr. Burton as on the first one, if you go there. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and on the 24th, we'll be busy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk?
Item 10A is under City Administration. It's the City Hall disposition update.
Mr. Perry?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, City Council, Rob Perry, City Administrator for the City of Bradenton. I put this on the agenda to try to give an update on where we are regarding the city center transaction with L&L, and specifically Vias of Bradenton, which is the name of the LLC for the purchasing agent, basically. Within your package, basically, is a preliminary agreement, and this type of transaction is a structured transaction, I refer to it as. And what that is that specifically on page 1, you look under the whereases, and it allows an exclusivity period to try to hone down the more significant issues regarding this transaction, the sale and purchase and development of it, within a series of different time periods. This is the first time period, which is the preliminary agreement, and we're asking for a motion to approve the preliminary agreement, authorizing me to approve it, basically. What it does is it calls for the master development agreement. You've heard me refer to that, which will have specific requirements that are more specific than the preliminary agreement. To name a few things like the massing plan, which buildings will be located where, the general architectural standards with architectural renderings. You all were engaged with Mr. Zorbel and some of the folks from Vias as it relates to what the architectural standards may be. And they're in the process of changing architects from the swaying building of, I believe it was Bernardo, and I forget Bernardo's firm, architectural firm, but he had put together the first rendering, and there was a little bit of feedback about it not being Bradenton. And so we got more specific, and Mr. Zorbel and his team met with each and every council, and they're working with the architects to basically put something together that reflects more what we think this project would architecturally be, to reflect the surrounding area and the culture and the history of Bradenton. So that will be kind of a deliverable. The next significant date is really the master development agreement, and that's March 29th. So it's right around the corner. This provides a 90-day period, basically, to hone down some of those issues. The developer and my team have had ongoing dialogue and conversations about significant issues that are transactionally related to the development, as well as things like the architectural standards, as well as things like infrastructure, as well as the finances, as well as the technical aspects of how the transaction is structured and the timelines and milestones associated therewith. So again, this is the first step. The next step will be March 29th, and ultimately thereafter, within the MDA, there'll be a time period really that will lead to the consummation of a closing. And the closing is particularly, a significant legal efficacy, because that's where title is formally transferred to the buyer and cash is formally provided to the seller. It's a real estate sale. So that's what we're looking at here. There are various provisions in here regarding the term, the milestones, the due diligence period under Article 3. There's some title issues that came up with one of the counselors that we had a very good discussion about. There may still be some open issues with that. I think as it relates to that point, it's probably worth me taking a second and going into a little bit more detail on it. And one of the counselors that I spoke with had the concerns regarding the title itself and the cost of providing the title insurance. And of course, typically that title insurance has to be part of the transaction because you have to warranty that you have marketable title. This is a unique property, and I was asked yesterday by one of the counselors, well, why aren't we splitting the cost of the title insurance? That can be done. It's negotiable, and it is in real estate transactions. But at this particular phase, it escaped me yesterday, and as I thought about it, I remembered, oh yes, I've had several meetings that are kind of related to this question. One of the issues was with the title is that this particular property has an interesting historical precept to it. It actually was where the bridge had come over and had shifted from 9th Street, where it currently is, onto this property to the far, where the bishop is and this part of the property and the like. Turner Street actually intersected from Third down and is still platted and will have to be vacated itself. I had met with David Cronkite, who's the city surveyor, several times, and I talked with him on the phone several times. And I talked with Mr. Rudisell too, and the planning department regarding what do we have to do to clean up all of this historical precept that's the overlay on the survey to this property in order to get a title insurance policy, a clean title, a marketable title. And we've got a few small things that have to be done. So as those obligations and work was at our forefront, I thought for right now, that's kind of our responsibility. That isn't the buyers. We have this property that has kind of gone through historical types of different things happening to it, including infill. Some of this was actually filled in like the sand pile. I mean, it's part of the sand pile, I guess, way back when. And Mr. Callahan's in the back. He probably knows a lot more about the history of it than I do, quite frankly. But I thought that was our responsibility. And so that's why I assume responsibility for the title cost at this particular point in time. That could change, subject to the master development agreement. So I thought that was worth clarifying. There's a term sheet that's attached to the package, and I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Questions? Comments? Obviously, again, when you had your meetings with each individual council person, they were able to ask questions and maybe even bring up some good points like
Yes.
that. So-
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
just a small question. Do we have to pay dock stamps?
Don't know.
Okay.
That's something that,
Yeah.
I mean, if we do, we do. I just was curious.
Ms. Moore,
We might be exempt. I'm not actually positive if we are or not, but then may I?
yes, ma'am.
After.
Are you, Ms. Coker?
Yeah, no, that was,
Ms.
yeah.
Moore?
I had a few comments that I thought I would share. I do agree that it's our responsibility to provide clear title, and so to the extent that there are things that have to be cleared, that is our expense and our responsibility. What I mentioned in my meeting with Mr. Perry is that what's negotiable is the cost of the premium. And given the purchase price, the expense is roughly probably going to be in the range of $36,000. I don't think it's unusual for a seller to pay for that, but it's my opinion that we should be asking not to pay for it in the very least. And I say that because when we had our conversation, unfortunately, I didn't have the benefit of the term sheet. And so when we had our conversation, it was more geared towards me thinking that we had the benefit of the use of the property for something closer to a year or two. But now I see that we're actually subject to liquidated damages after 6 months if we can't vacate. And so my concern is that we're going to be potentially facing some cost at the end if we can't vacate timely. And we've already agreed to pay for this. Where I'm coming from with that is, I understand that we're going to, that this is an ongoing negotiation. There's going to be some expenses that are reasonable for us to pay, but I don't want to obligate myself today to pay for something like title insurance and then at the back end be forced to pay liquidated damages because we can't vacate timely. Like there's a back and forth that we're going to be doing as we negotiate, but those are the risks of the costs that I see. And that's why I brought up, why are we paying for title insurance? And I still stand by that. I think it's an appropriate thing for us to ask in negotiations. And then just some other little comments for us to be on the lookout. Paragraph 3 with the conceptual design approval. I just want to make sure that we're okay from a planning department standpoint to be able to review the conceptual design to make sure that it's, because we're giving approval for any deviations with the land code. I understand in the term sheet now that we are subject to, or that they're subject to,
Permitting.
right. And so I appreciate that. But I just want to make sure that the planning department can turn that around in that kind of quick time frame. I think it's like 30 days. And then lastly, on page 9 of the term sheet, there's something about transportation concurrency and fair share transportation regulations, and that any fair share contributions will be applied as a credit against road impact fees. So I just note that again too as not something that we're actively paying, but if we're
if we're applying this as a credit, then it's just less money that the city is seeing come in. So I wrap that up in the cost of the transaction. And I just wanted to note that that's in there now as a point of negotiation. How do we feel about it? That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
I think we'll be discussing the specific details of that throughout the MDA period itself. Concurrency is an interesting issue. It's very complicated, and I'd prefer not to get into it at this point. I can explain it further as we do get to the MDA, and probably there's subject matter experts that are better at explaining it than I am, frankly.
So basically now you're looking for a motion to continue the process of where we are going forward and giving you the authority to continue that, but everything would still come back to the council for approval as we go forward.
Mayor?
Just 1 second, thank you.
Yes, Mayor, I believe this is a suggested motion in the packet.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. All right, that's what, yes, ma'am,
Maybe we
Ms.
could
Moore.
perhaps read that into the record.
Ms. Moore has one more question.
Yes, sir.
My concern is that if we are entering into this preliminary agreement, and I understand that it's necessary to begin the due diligence, and I do not want to delay, I'm excited about the project. My meeting, as a side note, with the developers was really, I thought, positive, and I enjoyed the opportunity to meet with them very much. But I don't want to obligate ourselves in this preliminary agreement. I want if we say in this preliminary agreement that we're paying for those things, do we really then have and this maybe is a question for conflict counsel, do we really then have the opportunity or to continue to negotiate? Will the MDA supersede this, or are our hands tied in our negotiations with the MDA because of what we've agreed to here?
Well, I don't think there's, the legal efficacy is limited of this agreement. Ultimately, it's not a consummated deal until you get a contract, and the MDA probably functions more of a contract than this is. This is kind of an agreement to agree, and I think it says that as it relates to the parties wish to enter into the preliminary agreement in order to allow developer to perform certain due diligence on this B, establish exclusivity period, and the parties shall negotiate in good faith. So I think it's still open to negotiations under this agreement. MDA probably gets a little harder baked at that point. Frankly, it's a lot harder baked at that point. Now, I think from a practical perspective, if I was on the other side and I came and said, well, you agreed to do this in the preliminary agreement to accept that responsibility, why are you changing the terms now? If you and I were sitting in a room negotiating, that's probably what the conversation would look like, right? And to that extent, I'd say, well, you heard what Councilor Moore said and some of the concerns of the other council. It's a sticky point, and so can we talk about it? And that's the way that type of part of the conversation would go. Ultimately, it is a negotiation, an arm's length transaction where people give and take.
Ms. Coker?
Yeah, I appreciate where Ms. Moore is coming from on the title insurance, but historically in Manatee County, the seller has been responsible for the title insurance, because you're basically warranting, you're putting your money where your mouth is, that you're saying you've got clean, marketable title that you are transferring to the buyer. And it wasn't until Lakewood Ranch and all the Sarasota realtors, because they're different, started kind of bleeding up into Manatee County, that you started seeing it get negotiated. Historically, in Manatee County, you have the seller paying the title insurance. It's changed a little bit recently, but I think we put our money where our mouth is, and provide them with marketable title. I've maintained that through my whole, but it does get negotiated, I do know that.
There's a lot of negotiating points going through, and it's a give and take, as we know, and obviously, when you're looking at some fees, they're minimal compared to the overall, but I agree with kind of everything that was said today. This is not setting it in stone, I didn't believe, but there is some points, and obviously, what we have to do is, in this point, is we're negotiating it in the public. So, where if you're a private deal, you can go back and forth. So some of that, I think, we don't want all our cards on the table to a point, but we want to make sure that we're getting the best for the citizens, and that's what you and I've talked about, so.
That's a good perspective. I mean, this conversation in and of itself, if you take a typical commercial real estate transaction that doesn't have sunshine provisions and other in the public types of provisos to it, you could have these conversations. However, we can't do that and shouldn't do it because that's not the law. And as a matter of legislative policy, it has to be done in public. And so there's a good side to it because by doing it in public, Councilor Moore has brought out the fact that, this is something worth discussing. And I think Councilor Coker had pointed out that traditionally it isn't. I've purchased 3 pieces of personal property in Florida. St. Petersburg was the seller, and my understanding was you're doing just what you said. You are reflecting and representing that you have marketable title. To that extent, it's the seller's responsibility. But when I came down here in the heat of the housing market, and I asked them, I go, well, how come every place else the seller pays if they said this is a different market? And as I found out, it was true. I thought they were kind of stretching me a little bit on the deal. Yeah.
I think the words are by tradition is the way, when I got my real estate license. And Manatee County was always different.
It is tradition, but it's negotiable.
Sure.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything is.
yeah, I appreciate tradition, but it's also negotiable, and so I feel like that should be on the table. So those 2 items concern me, and like I said, I'm excited about the project. I want to 100% not delay. I would suggest that I would suggest a motion to adopt this agreement with the addition of language in paragraph, sorry, I just had my hand on it. Article 3A, in the first sentence where it says, shall be generally consistent with the term sheet, provided, however, that costs and liquidated damages are free to be further negotiated, something to that effect.
The liquidated damages.
Cost of
Okay.
title insurance premium, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
You'd mentioned 3 particular points. One was the title insurance and who pays for that. The second was the holdover provisions of the liquidated damages. And the third one was the term sheet, specifically the concurrency provisions.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's subject to negotiation anyway. And in particular, that liquidated damage provision and the holdover is probably one of the more significant things related to this transaction. So with that, we'll be negotiating that anyway, I guess is my point. Yep.
I'll second it.
Okay, so
Any further discussion? Mr. Rudisell, any comment?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Just for the record, our firm hasn't been involved in this negotiation on either side, so we have conflict counsel engaged, so I don't have any comments.
All right, but again, all of that, implied or not, was kind of what was going to be happening, and so adding it in just makes it easier to when it comes back to the council, that everything was done in the proper way, in the transparency way, and then we move forward,
yes, sir.
with the vote at that time.
Yes, sir.
It's
That's
basically-
what I think the legal.
All right, so we have a motion by Mrs. Moore with the stipulation, seconded by Ms. Coker. Any further discussion?
Can I get clarification on the motion? Just
I move
the
that-
official motion.
Yes, I move that we adopt the agreement with the addition of language in Article 3A, after the language that says, which shall be generally consistent with the term sheet set forth in Exhibit C, attached here to and a part of the term sheet, provided, however, that as to the expense of title insurance, liquidated damage from the holdover period, and the transportation concurrence credit for road impact fees be freely further negotiated without,
Continue to negotiate on those 3 items,
without being subject to the terms of this agreement.
which they would have already been still processed through, but this makes it a little bit more highlighted.
That's not the clearest legal language.
It is not, and I would like to play with it, but I also feel like conflict counsel can, as long as I don't want to be bound in this agreement. To clarify the intent of the motion, I don't want to be bound by this agreement in those 3 areas, but I also desire not to delay.
I think if you look at the suggested motion, and work from that and just say, I think we all know what your intent is. And I don't think that anything could be construed to say that they can't negotiate here, but if you wanted to add to that.
How about I take a stab at it? On page one of the cover sheet, it says, motion to approve city administrator to execute the preliminary agreement with Exhibit B, the term sheet, and continued diligence with the developer relative to the disposition of City Hall. Subject, and I think we add something in there to the extent of subject to specific attention to concurrency, holdover provisions, and
Closing costs?
title insurance, further negotiations for those three items. And that way, I have to address them. When I come back in, and if you say, hey, we approved a motion, and this is what it was, tell me what you did to negotiate those in the MDA. And I think I've satisfied, I mean, again, they're subject to negotiations anyway, but specifically, expressly, they're delineated
But
as
not
subject
limited to.
Not
Right.
limited to.
Yeah,
Not
yep.
limited to the terms of this agreement.
Yep.
Okay, so does that
Is
answer?
that good for you?
I think that will get us there.
I'm sorry.
That's-
Did I
You'll
confuse
accept
No, I just thought-
that terminology?
Okay, then I'm fine with the second, yeah.
Knew they
you? We have
suggested
lawyers in the
motion.
room.
All right, any further
I just stated the
discussion?
Holiday Inn Express.
Mayor, if I may just clarify one more thing. So there's a timing issue with the title insurance because it does have, we're responsible to deliver it within 14 days. So I'll just note that you're probably going to have to figure out that issue relatively soon, so that whoever, unless the developer is okay with our conflict counsel continuing to be the settlement agent and provide the title insurance.
I imagine we're probably going to have to extend that period because of what I talked about regarding the survey and conditions. And I think if I went to a title insurance company, they'd say, you got to clarify this stuff up before we issue a policy.
It's,
And that's actually mentioned specifically in a great deal of detail further in, I think it's going to be page 4 of the document. It's going to be page 4, section 4, subsection B, title commitment, and then under subsection 2, if the developer shall determine the title commitment discloses title defects, the developer may so notify the city of the fact not later than 30 days prior to the expiration of the term, as used herein. The term title defects, we're talking about title defects.
But we're going to try to fix all those defects before it gets to that.
Yes.
and maybe we should do it so many days before closing.
Yeah, well, they have to be
Normally
basically
that's-
before the, yeah.
Instead of 14 days from the effective date,
Right,
why not
right.
do it?
I believe we're looking at doing that. I mean,
Okay.
typically, that's what it is. You are absolutely right, that you have to have marketable title at a certain period prior to closing. Because we have the MDA period in this, we're trying to get that done sooner rather than later. That was part of the meetings that we had with the planning department, is do we vacate Turner Street and do that first? Do we do it later? And part of it, what makes it a little tricky, is we've got to get with the developer to say, look, if you're going to look at potential subdividing of this parcel, so you have a hotel piece, you have an apartment piece, you have a condo piece, you have a parking lot piece, then maybe we work with them so we don't have to do it twice. So it gets more complicated. Yeah, yeah.
But again, you're not, this is starting that, continuing the process we're in that will then allow to be back to this council, hopefully in a timely manner, to then continue the process.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what it is. It's a continuing process.
In transparency, that is, when you're meeting, and any council member can meet with you 7/24, basically.
Yep.
You know, I know that's.
As many of you do. And you get my emails late at night, too.
That
right?
is,
Yeah.
anyway, all right, so any further questions, or the motion has been clarified? The motion are accepted, the second are accepted. We'll move on to start the vote in Ward 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and 5.
Yes.
Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on to Community Redevelopment Agency. I read it for you, miss.
Thank
I figured
you.
your voice was probably getting tired. So coming forward. Good morning.
I'm bringing it up.
Please state your name and
Good
title for the
morning.
record.
I'm Jean G. Farmer, the Public Art Coordinator for the Community Redevelopment Agency. And we're here today because recently we identified a great place to have a mural. And this is the picture of the place where we think would be a good mural. It's the northwestern side of City Center parking facility. So it's located on Old Main Street, and it's the place right near the retail shops and where the entry is, where the guests at Spring Hill Suites go to park their cars. So the property is owned by the city, and so the CRA is just here today to ask for permission to use that space for a mural.
To explore or to actually get total permission to use it, and then who would approve the mural?
So the way that would work is we would next go to the Public Art Advisory Board, and then from the Public Art Advisory Board, we would, if it's recommended, they would go to the CRA Board to have that approved.
All right, and the reason that I'm asking, probably more than I would have asked, coming out of us just tearing down a building in the CRA that had a great mural on it, but this council, the previous council, and others tried to save that mural, and obviously now there's some information going around that's just totally untrue, that, you know, nobody wanted the mural. Nobody wanted to take the expense of taking the mural down. So, you know, a lot of times we want to be careful what we wish for if something changes down the road for another council, because, you know, that was done at expense, and we didn't tear that building down for years trying to find somebody. So I just wanted that known, that, you know, the old Bogies building, the police substation was tried. And now there's some propaganda out there saying that they didn't try, and it's in your neighborhood. So I
Yes.
would hope you would, with the businesses.
That's where that's going.
Yeah, I would hope you would get that out to the.
I will.
To the villagers in there, that maybe that's Village of the Arts. I don't want to say villagers, but if you would get that out, being part of this, that we did try.
Yes, I was part of the trying too.
Right, so, that was just, I saw that recently, and it was like, gosh, no good deed goes unpunished. And, but I think the property looks great now, and as we know, there's other things coming for that. So, anyone else have any comments, or, and I'm supportive of this, so I'm not against that. You got to sometimes set it up for the future.
Correct.
Any other comments or questions, or?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to note, my expectation is that there will be an agreement that would come back. Since this would be artwork going up on city property, there will be an agreement that will come back to the city council on this.
So is this something we need a motion today to move forward? And then
I think,
back with final approval by the city council?
right, what I'm hearing is, I think that's what the CRA is looking for, is just authorization to move forward, to pursue a mural on the site, to be funded by the CRA, is that?
Correct.
Okay,
I have a,
question, let's get a motion and then discussion under the motion.
okay.
Motion to approve this Community Redevelopment Agency to install a mural on the northwest wall of the city center parking lot facility.
Second.
Okay, discussion, Ms. Coker?
I love it. I do have a little bit of concern that that's going to be completely covered once the new property is developed here. That's going to basically be an alley. So I think that needs to be kept in mind, that if the mural's going to go way up, I just don't know how much you're going to be able to see, because you're not going to be able to get probably that. I don't know how much to expect, but I just think that whenever it's designed and everything, they need to keep that in mind.
There will always be a walkway through because of the magic river that's there and the sidewalk between that area. So I agree with you, it may be a little bit harder to see the top because you're not far back, but that will always be a focal point of kind of the corner of the garage and some of that. And I think that one of the things that obviously we want to do a little better job, even in the city, maintaining, is that little dirt area below it, So if we can get some mulch on that
We do have
now,
some ideas there.
to make it look a little better with our Downtown Action Committee, then as the mural goes up, and maybe the mural doesn't have to be all the way to the top. I don't know.
I think it would be great to be all the way to the
Yeah,
top. And if
I
you-
don't know. I'm just saying, once they come
Yeah.
up with it, it might be something or it fits different. But that's when the art.
But that's what's, yeah, that's
That's
where.
what the design,
the
and
discussion
with
will
the
match that.
motion, it still comes back for final approval. Right, so, all right, no, but good comments.
And if, you think about it, alley activation's one of the big things with art now. And so when it becomes an alley, it'll be all right. But also, people that are living there will be able to see it. So,
Higher rent in those apartments, because they have a view.
Depends on the art.
Yeah. All right, any other questions?
I don't think so, other than, did we need to amend the motion to address the cost, or do you feel like we've adequately addressed everything with the existing motion?
The way I view the motion, it's really just authorizing moving forward with the concept.
Yeah.
They still have to come back.
Right.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the moving forward and coming back. We'll start the vote in Ward 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
and 1.
Yes.
Carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And any positive comments throughout the village about what we tried on that mural?
I will do it.
Yeah. All right, Madam Clerk?
We do not have anything scheduled under unfinished business today.
All right, so we'll move on to council reports, and we'll start. in
Mayor,
Ward-
before we
oh,
get to that.
Yes.
I think maybe Mr. Jones, Dean Jones from Public Works may want to give a quick update on the storm impact.
Well, we'll go through
Okay,
when we
wherever you
get to
wanna
the,
put that.
yeah, we'll put that under with the department heads.
And I know you want to talk about some public safety issues. Mr. Melzler
Yeah.
from Fire Marshal's Office,
Right.
DFD is here as well.
Yeah, good. That'll be under department heads. So, let's go to council reports, Ward 1.
Oh, boy. Okay. Actually, Happy New Year to everyone. And I just wanted to throw out some compliments to the city for the New Year's Eve celebration. I was there. It was a lot of fun. It really warmed my heart. This is why I love Bradenton. We're a small town, and it really was a nice event. And so all those I know that worked hard to make sure it was a success. BPD had such a great showing out there. Everybody felt safe. Public Works, Fire Department, everybody. I just want to thank you because it was a great way to start a new year. So I did want to say that. And I don't really have much else to say at this point.
Thank you very much. Ms. Barnaby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, was down at downtown with the New Year's Eve celebration, and there was an outstanding crowd there. It's been a long time since I've seen that many people come, and that was wonderful to see everyone there. Also, just to remind everybody that fun is in the air at the Manatee County Fair. It begins January the 11th and goes until the 22nd, but I wanted to pay special attention to the evening of January the 16th. It is the fair salute to veterans, and admission to the fair is free that night, courtesy of Palmetto Build, and it's a wonderful program that they do, and I would just like to encourage everyone to come out and show support to the many veterans that we have in our community. And then I wanted to express my deepest sympathy to the family of Roberta Collins. She was the mother of a childhood friend of mine, but she also worked at Manatee Memorial Hospital in labor and delivery in the newborn nursery for 30 years. So there were a lot of babies that came through Bradenton that Miss Birdie got to look after. So my sympathy to the family on her passing.
Thank you, Ms. Barnaby. And I think one of the things you mentioned about the veterans for the fair, while we're on that, is that bring a canned good. And because they do donate it to, who did they say yesterday? Meals on Wheels, maybe? Something that's
It's the
some
food
different food pantry. But last year, they collected just under 1,700 pounds of food. That was a record. But, if anybody is out listening and gets this, let's try to make it and get to 2,000 pounds, if you're bring an extra can with you, because anything we can do to help people that, especially coming out of the holiday, you want to do what you can to help. And then Roberta and John Collins were great friends at Christ United Methodist for years, and then had moved over, and I was in youth group when they were doing a lot. And so, we're going to, obviously John a few years ago, and then Roberta now, but great friends. So thank you for mentioning that. Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, sir. Welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year. One thing I want to remind everyone of, you had a little bit of a traffic reprieve for the last several weeks, but school is back in session. Manatee County schools started back yesterday, some of the private schools earlier. But please be mindful, same warning we seem to give you around Halloween and around beginning of the school year, but please always be mindful in school zones, especially after school. Kids stagger their times. You may see a school zone sign for certain hours, but after school especially, you have students leaving at staggered times. So please just be careful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Moore?
I don't have too much to report. I have been appointed to the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council Steering Committee, and I spent Monday with them voting on their priorities. They have a lengthy list of goals, but they've honed down what they're going to focus on this year. And I am very pleased to report that at least one of their 3 goals is not controversial at all. It is very much funding and planning for hardening and resiliency of infrastructure, which, as everyone knows, that is my beating drum. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us. And during my meeting with Mr. Perry, I was much like one of my children telling me a lengthy Minecraft story and could not stop telling him about all the exciting things I think that are opportunities that we might have to access funding and resources through that organization for our own lengthy list of infrastructure and public works projects. So more to come.
Thank you. Ms. Coachman?
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. I did. I was away from school. It was quiet. I FaceTimed my grandkids. So it was a quite peaceful holiday season for me, and I hope you also had a great one. I'll just say too, I was going to say, Councilman Kramer, about the safety of our children being back at school. Yesterday was the first day, and with the possibility of severe weather, it was interesting that still 714 of them came to school. Well, maybe a little less. But around 1 o'clock, parents were lined up to come and pick them up. And our dismissal is at 4:15, so they really did a great job getting their young ones to safety. As far as fun things coming, fun is in the air at the Manatee County Fair, as Councilwoman Barnaby mentioned. I also want to wish everyone a happy MLK Day. Because that's coming up. We got some holidays coming up to enjoy, and it'll be some 3-day weekends for us. Other than that, over break, we were kind of in vacation mode, but not my neighbors. They were constantly coming to me about the speeding cars and people parking where they shouldn't park. So hopefully this upcoming year we can get some speed limit signs out to remind people when you're in a neighborhood, don't drive 60 miles per hour or 90. And also in terms of parking, there's a lot of problems over on the east side. And we'll probably be addressing those this year. So,
thank you. Obviously, the fair, is coming, which is a great time every year. We know that the weather has changed because the fair's in town. So hopefully it came a little early, and then the fair will be nice and be able to stay open. But I'd like to thank our staff yesterday. Obviously, we had to really work through timing and getting people home because we do have a couple of people that live over the Skyway and worried about that closing and trying to make things easier. So I just appreciate all the staff and department heads and working within their departments and going through it. Where I was, other than some high tide, there was very little rain. I don't know if it was just kind of like a zone that came through and was just kind of like, that was it. And it was quick, but I know that some areas, on Riverview and Riverside and that did have, because of the high tide, some of the streets covered. And one of the things that going through things with the staff and also the Ms. Barnaby, last night, we talked about the street and some resiliency things that Ms. Moore talked about. We're not going to be able to build a moat around it, but if there's some things we can do, and we're working on some of that with resiliency through some grants that are out there in some areas. We know that the pipes that we're putting on Riverview will stop the water from coming in, but it won't stop it from coming over the top. And that's where the issues are now. It's not about over the top. So those things are being addressed, but, it's not something you can address overnight and go through things. So there's always stuff in the air and going, so we're working that. Just talk about the New Year's Eve party, Bradenton Alive, and the group that's doing that now, started out a little slow, and we know that, but they really worked it up, and Thanksgiving was better from the Halloween, and now New Year's Eve was the largest crowd I've seen downtown, being down there at midnight, and just got compliments from everybody about all of our staff, and especially our police department, the way they managed it. Because on a New Year's Eve party, there's always different things, and up until we left, and thank the county again for allowing us to have the fireworks off the top of their building, because we could do it up some different areas, but it's something that's right above us, and it really, really played out well and worked to something that was made us all proud that, those things are going. The next two events with that group will be St. Patrick's Day, which obviously that's always a different event because of the fun parties. And then they did add in July 4th. So they will have a street party on July 4th because it gives people stuff to do and then get to the river. Last year, people were walking around looking, there's nothing to do until the fireworks. So I thought that was important that we do that and going through. And just some of the things that are coming up. We'll have meetings before those, but the regatta is really, I think, going to be off the charts this year, being the 9th regatta. And again, the same day as the regatta is going to be the Pirates Fest. And that's a heavy lifting on staff, but we appreciate them stepping up and being willing to do it. And in between that is the market. So there's a lot of stuff going on that Saturday that will be downtown Bradenton is alive. And that's what we wanted. And the people will have all options. And if you want to come in the morning, stay all day, there'll be opportunity to do that. And I know our market, from going down to the market, I haven't been to everyone, but it really is showing that people are walking around with bags now. And I think that, it's something that we can get some information later, but people are buying, and that's what keeps the vendors coming back and making it even that much better. So we're just proud of that. And then obviously coming soon is the DeSoto Parade. We approved some things today on different things, but the DeSoto Parade, and, I'm going to say it because it was funny, but it wasn't funny to me as much. But somebody posted with the storm, did somebody just cancel the DeSoto Parade on Facebook? Thinking that, it was a funny comment with the weather. But, I can see the levity in it, but not when we get blamed for doing something we didn't do. But we've, working towards opportunity with that. So just exciting. We got so many exciting things over the next several months that are kind of outside of our control totally, but within it. And it's a great, great day. And it's going to be a great chamber event today to be part of our city and give, what we've accomplished, what we've looked forward to. And I want to just thank this. I'm going to probably say it again. You'll hear me say it again. But in my many years on the city council and then as mayor now, last year with this group was such a great year to be together. And I think we accomplished something working with our staff to make things so much better when there's not always that negativeness. And I don't have a problem with people, coming up with ideas and why we should do something differently. But you don't have to be so disruptive and negative. And this group is really doing a great job at working for the best of what you feel, but still working for the best of the whole. Because when you have to go through a political type situation, there's always going to be some questions. When you're in a marriage, there's going to be questions. When you're in any organization, there's going to be questions. And Josh is smiling because he's like me, probably. Yes, yes, dear.
I was just going to say you're welcome.
Yeah, yes, dear. Thank you. So we appreciate everybody. And at this time, we'll move to department heads. We'll start with Chief Bevan. Nothing from, okay, fire department? Nothing. All right, planning? Good morning.
Good morning.
Robin didn't have to come up yet today, till now, huh?
Robin Singer, Planning Community Development Director. I just want to give you an update on the city's visioning process. A visioning process is an outgrowth of the city's amendments to the comprehensive plan that we hope to accomplish in the coming year. So we're going out with a community-wide survey. Initially, we want to have some community, we're going to have interviews with stakeholders. We're going to have community events where we meet with the residents, and then we're going to go out with a citywide survey, and it's really about how the city wants to grow and evolve over time. So where we are in the process right now is the consultant with Stantec has met with individual city council members and some city staff, also a steering committee made up mostly of city staff. And from there, they're compiling a list of stakeholders. Next week, they're going to go to the Planning Commission and make a presentation there. And then the following week, they'll be back here at City Council making a presentation to you. And hopefully, we'll have firmed up that list of stakeholders, because following that, they're going to go right into those interviews with the individual stakeholders. Some of those will be group meetings, some of those will be individual meetings. But it's just for them to get an idea, particularly for those people who know the history of the city, where we've come from, and potentially where we're going to. That's what the stakeholder meetings are going to bring us. Then following that, by the end of February, we're hoping to have some of those community meetings. Now, when we originally conceived this, it was going to be meetings in each ward. And then we talked about 2 meetings in each ward, one during the day and one during the evening. After we had those initial discussions, we also had those meetings that were talking about City Hall. And we're a little concerned based on, some of the turnout for that was great and some of it was a little meager. So we're looking at the possibility of dialing back a little bit on the public meetings to get more people attending, because I think the more people that attend a single meeting, the more that you get that interaction between residents that gives us better feedback, I think, because they kind of set each other up for comments and questions. So with that, we've had meetings with you all to kind of get your feeling on that, but I kind of wanted a consensus today because we would really like to kind of formalize where those locations and times for those public meetings are going to be, so that when the Stantec comes to you on the 24th, we can kind of make a public announcement of where those meetings and when those meetings are going to be. So with that, I kind of want to open it up to comments from you all on whether or not we want to have continue with the potential for 1 or 2 meetings in each ward, or whether we want to have something simpler with a meeting on the west, a meeting on the east, and a meeting downtown, or whether we simply want to have a couple of meetings downtown. So with that,
Vice Mayor Barnaby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember doing this process back in 1998, 99, and it does work better the more people you have. There's something about the synergy of people in a room looking at ideas and maps and things and working in small groups and reporting back. And it's difficult to do that if you just have, 5, 6, 7 people show. So with and at that time, we did not have the ability to do online surveys and have online participation that we do now. So I'm thinking that having either one on the east side, one on the west side, and one in the middle, or if we just do several here, somewhere in the middle of the city, maybe a couple of different times, and really put effort into getting people to come out to those meetings, that might serve our purpose better.
And even, we could say during the day, at night, and even maybe on a Saturday, because the markets open. People can come if they wanted to. I just felt that that was the best direction to go after looking at when my meeting with them was and talking about it and thinking back to every meeting we had with the city hall. We had one meeting where one or two people showed up and we had the same amount of staff there as well as the same number of police officers, but it was turned into that because of where we were, that there was more police officers. It was the same everywhere, but because when there's 20 people, you don't notice it. When there's one person, it feels like they're being teamed up on. So the goal, like we said, is to have more engagement, and with the social media type engagement, we can get more information. So I agree with Ms. Barnaby and agree kind of the direction we're going. Ms. Moore, yes.
I was just going to reiterate that I agree with both of them, that to me, the location is less important, especially since my ward is hard to identify meeting spaces. But the timing, I think, is more important. I think it is still important to have various times of day for people's lifestyle. And I think that having one on Saturday with the market is a great idea to try to capture.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, it's about engagement.
Right.
And we tried for the city hall, and, it worked, but there was some idiosyncrasies that we can improve on. So, Ms. Coachman?
Yes, all those are great ideas. I just hope there's like a safety net near the end that once we identify people throughout the city where they live, if there's an area that just seems like it was, they weren't present, then I feel we should have a kind of a backup in terms of how are we going to reach those people? How are we going to reach the people that just say, you know what, been through this, been there, done that, not going to do what I say. There's going to be a pocket somewhere, and I just hope at the end, once we have had all of the meetings, and if we find that there's a chunk of the city that, if there's something else we could do to meet with them and meet them where they are.
That's a great idea, because we can see how the flow is going.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, if we're not getting the people at these meetings, maybe there's some opportunity.
So then we know where to home in and get.
All right. So I think that's some direction.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Williams? Mr. Perry?
Just, I believe Mr. Jones wants to give an update.
Yeah, it's saving him the best for last.
Okay.
No pressure.
Acting Director, Mr. Dean Jones. That's kind of like a song, acting director.
Am I acting or just directing?
And
I'm
then
not sure.
name.
Good morning, Dean Jones, Acting Director, Public Works and Utilities. Just like to give a brief update on the storm that we had yesterday. We had a high tide at 10:11 last night, and our low tide was 7 a.m. this morning. There was water on Riverview Boulevard last night, but it is high and dry at this point. There was also water on Riverside Drive East, which they are also dry. The whole city has fared very well. All the roads are passable. Both water plants, the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant, are working well. And our Christmas decorations were put down prior to the winds, prior to the rain, so there were no damages there. Also, I'd like to thank a couple of people, if they would stand up. My section manager, Craig Keys. You stand up, please, Craig. Section manager, Letitia Smith. Superintendents, Ross Peterson and Brian Cho. And the superintendents and all those, too many to mention, I can't thank, that aren't here today. Just want to let them know what a great job they did. I've worked with a lot of teams all the way from junior high football, Marine Corps, and other emergency management teams, but I slept well last night knowing that there was communication up and down the line. These people had their best foot forward, and they made sure that this city was safe. And I hope the people on this council, Mayor, Mr. Perry, Mr. Rudisill, and the citizens of Bradenton, that you can rest assured that any emergency that happens, these people are going to be on top of it, and we're going to make sure that we keep the city intact as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Jones? Vice Mayor Barnaby.
Mr. Jones, I just wanted to say thank you very much to you and to your team. I know that stepping in as an acting director is like drinking out of a fire hose right now.
Yes, ma'am.
But I appreciate that if I call you, you call me back, we get the information we need, we're able to get what we need to help the citizens. And I just want you to know I recognize that it's not the easiest job, but I think you're doing a good job at it. And I want to thank you for all the work that you're putting into it.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that.
Ms. Coker?
Yeah, thank you. I've had a lot of calls and comments about the drinking water, and I've given them the response. Have we continued to have saltwater intrusion into the drinking water, or was that just at that one?
Intrusion.
Not intrusion.
Like that.
Well, I was told from the storm there was saltwater that went in.
Actually, ma'am, from the winds, there was salt water that had been stirred up. Our drinking water facility has done an excellent job at keeping us informed. Also, Mr. Perry, the mayor, about the levels of the conductivity, as they call it. I'm not an expert in water treatment, but I can tell you those levels have come down, and they've almost reached the points where we would consider them normal.
Okay.
And that's really due to the amount of rain that we've been getting. So.
And there was never any, other than taste, any issues that we had to worry about, like when you boil water and you do all that stuff?
That's correct,
other than
Mayor.
Taste at the beginning. And I think we all have city water, so, when I brushed my teeth this morning again, I didn't taste anything.
Yes, sir. Our water plant took different steps, and I won't go into it. It's a lot of detail to make sure that the drinking water was as safe as possible. It is very safe to drink, and then I feel like we have some of the best water that you could have in Florida, and that's because of our staff, because of our processes, our methods, and we're going to continue to do that.
Mr. Perry?
Just, it's an interesting phenomena that has a lot to do with weather that had come and gone, and rainfall. The short version is that there was an intrusion back in I believe it was Adelia, and it did bring some brackish salt water into our reservoir. The high salt content, being a mineral, is heavier. It sinks to the bottom. It was then agitated by a storm that came in about 2 months ago.
That's
and
correct.
so as it's agitated, you taste more in the water. It's not a bacterial problem of any type at all, where it wouldn't meet EPA standards, but you do have a higher taste if you have more salinity. When you talk about conductivity, what conductivity is how fast electrons move through the water. It can be measured a lot quicker than taking a sample to a lab and looking at salinity, which is salt content. Conductivity is a proxy for salt content. You wouldn't know any of this unless you need specialized water. Industrial use that's used to clean microchips and things like that, used in kidney dialysis machines. Really pure distilled water. So the tolerance standard is fine. We're within the tolerance standard right now. But if you wanted to use our water for specialized industrial, healthcare, or other use, there could be a higher salt content in it based on the salinity as lab tested or conductivity as field tested, and that type of discernment. People really don't taste it at this level that we're seeing right now.
That's correct.
And the solution is more rain. One of the reasons why is that gets into the whole level of the reservoir is where we pump from. And the lower we have to pump, the higher the salt is, because there's characterization of plumes of those minerals. And we're working on these very, very nuanced scientific microbiology, chemistry issues over there. And we just have to kind of go with a little bit of nature and a little bit of attention and a little bit of treatment options that we can kind of maneuver. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is a product of environmental impact and influence, environmental conditions. The county has an interesting, they don't do surface water. They go into aquifers. Their issues, as you remember about 6 months ago, was more with bacteria. There was some different types of contaminants in their water. And that's a whole different set. So you could say, well, you know, if you're having salinity problems, maybe we should go with the county. Definitely an option. It's just another set of problems you have with underground water storage, aquifer type water than you get with surface water, which is what Everest Reservoir is in our water treatment. I'm not very good in science, I assure you, but that's the basics of what I understand at a layman's level.
It's a good interpretation.
A lot of our people are, but
the
I'm
res-
not.
And the response
yeah.
that I had gotten was very helpful, and I've been sharing that with people. I did, so you feel like we're back to the pre-levels now?
We're close.
Yeah.
We're close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's-
that was
I-
my main question, was how long should I tell people to expect it? I told them, you're going to have to wait for some rain and, you know, Mother
Right.
nature to kind
We
of,
think pre-levels are around 700 to 800, and it's measured in different calibers, whether it's parts per million or with the other conductivity measurement.
It's measured in Siemens.
Yeah, in Siemens, which is the conductivity electronic kind of measurement. But we're at about what, 1040, 1050?
We're about at, last night we were like 1040, 1100, and we want to get it down to about 900, so we're extremely close.
We were as high. When you can taste it is usually when it's around 1700.
Yeah, we had gotten up
there.
to 17,
And we did
1800.
get up there with that wind chop came in from that storm a month or so. We don't know really why it agitated it so much. I mean, you know, we get a lot of wind here. We got wind last night.
I know, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
We think a
Thank
combination.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
I didn't mean to.
No.
No, not at all.
Can of worms,
And
but I do know a lot of people are talking about it.
And as the levels go down, I've been disseminating information to Mr. Williams, to the mayor, Mr. Perry. I'll continue to do so, and then they can put that information back down the chain of command.
Daily.
Daily.
Yeah.
Daily. I would do
Nightly.
it.
Nightly,
Nightly.
pretty much, yeah.
I think I was sending text last night about 9:30 or so.
Might have been a little later.
My wife, she's like, "Who are you talking to?"
Ms. Moore?
You guys always do a great job. I'm super appreciative of your hard work. I was going to let you know, and you probably already know, that the street is dry on Riverside, but it did leave a lot of debris, and it smells quite bad. So I don't know what the plan is for, I'm sure you've got a plan for cleaning and whatnot, but
Yes, ma'am. Already Craig Keys and his group's drainage is on top of it. So we're going to make sure that everything is cleaned up. And actually on Riverview Boulevard, we have some teams go over there to do a little bit of cleaning. There's some inlets that we want to maintenance that even though Woodruff is over there, that's our backyard. So we'll take care of that.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for stepping in really seamlessly for Mr. McClellan after his retirement. I know you and I have spoken a lot prior to, but then certainly since. Thank you for everything the staff did for yesterday, keeping us safe.
Thank you.
And I'm thankful that I said it all without getting teary-eyed like the vice mayor.
Well, I'll guarantee you, the storms like this are,
When she's out of the room.
I would have said if she was here. And it's all recorded.
Here you go.
storms like this is always, a chance for us to really test our systems and test our chain of command. And I'll be honest with you, it's the best, some of the best I've ever worked with. And I'm sure that no matter what comes down the line, that we'll be able to handle it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for the good of the whole?
Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold up your pink card.
Somebody steal your pink card?
I don't have one
Have
either.
not had one.
Me either. I mean, I have a
Oh, yeah.
white.
Is there a way that maybe we could make some new ones? Or-
Blue one for Josh.
Yeah.
Another pink one.
I think they should. I think they should.
I won't be shy in getting
They
attention.
were here at one point.
Volunteer mine.
They just.
I'm just close enough
We'll get
that I
some
can
down here, I
like.
promise.
It was just easier for me to see if I was looking
Right.
back and forth.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, well, then we'll be adjourned.